Hey guys, one of the questions that gets asked a lot on the forums is how do you set up a podcast archive just like how Michael does his. We can see he's got a page with some content and he's got this cool table down here that sorts all of his most recent podcasts. So in this screencast we're going to set up one just like it. So I'm going to jump over to my WordPress site, and the first thing we need to do is we need to create a page. This page will become the archive. So to do that, I'm going to go to Pages, Add New. We need to give this page a title. I'll call this Podcast. If you wanted to add some content here or add some pictures, you can add whatever you'd like. It'll show up before the table. For now, I'm just going to put test. The last thing we need to do before we publish this is we need to go down here under page attributes and template. We need to set this to the podcast archives. And then I'm going to publish this. And that's all you need to do to set up the page. I'm going to quick add this to the navigation on my site by going to Appearance Menus and checking Podcast, Add to Menu, and then saving it. So right now, if I go to my site, I should see that I have a new link for podcasts, and it looks just like a regular page. We need to set up a few more things before the podcasts actually start appearing. So I'm going to go back to the WordPress backend. The next thing we need to do is we need to set up a category. So the way the podcast archive works is it filters all of your posts with a certain category onto that nice table. So to create the category, we're going to go to Post Categories, and we need to create a new category. So I'm going to call this Podcast. The slug, this is the important, this has to be podcast, all lowercase, make sure there's no spaces or any other characters in there. It needs to be just podcast. Parent will keep none, and we don't need a description. So I can quick add that. You can see it shows up there. Great. If I jump back to my podcast, we can see there's still nothing there, and that's because we don't have any posts yet. So I'm going to create a new post, and we'll call this, the way the titles work here is a little interesting. You need to put a number before your title, and that's the number will actually appear over here. So I'll call this one 001, space, and then this is whatever you want the title to be. First podcast. In the body is where you'd embed your the link to your podcast, or if you're using a plugin to do your podcast, you could put the plugin widget or short code in here. I'm just going to put test again. The last thing we need to do before we publish is we need to actually assign it to the category we just created. So you'll see podcast now appears down here. I'm going to check the box and hit publish. Great. So now if I actually view the post, it'll look just like every other post, nothing too special. But now, hopefully, when I go to podcasts, you'll see that the table's now here. We see 001, the name of the podcast, and then the date it was published. And then you can click through. And that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or post it on the forums. Thanks, that's it.